In this video, you're gonna find out how you can become a full-stack web developer. My name is Zsolt Nagy and I've been a software developer since 2006 and I'm right now a mentor at a full-stack web development bootcamp. So I have seen software developer aspirants become full-stack web developers, including creating their portfolio items and so on. And I know that this is a hard and daunting task if we are looking from the outside, and oftentimes all you have is just some level of trust that it's gonna work out. So from this video you're gonna find out what it takes to become a full stack web developer, and also that what kind of steps you need to take. And we're also gonna focus on some level to figure out that you don't have to learn everything. In fact, learning is just a small part of becoming a web developer. It's rather the training and the practice that is going to be really important. How do you know if web development is the right career for you? Well, first of all, if you've been reading some articles, or for example, if you have been programming a bit here and there, or you were interested in how websites, web applications are made, then I would definitely encourage you to explore further. But if we're just looking from the outside and you're interested in more details about web development, and you can see that it's basically a good job, a good career to have, or you're looking for freelance opportunities, or you're a business person who would like to employ other web developers and you would like to know what is going on the web, you would like to be able to talk to web developers, then this is also the right career for you. So let's see what full stack web development entails. There are multiple parts, so there is front-end development, backend development, that's basically full stack, also database development on some level, version control systems, and accompanying knowledge, for example, continuous integration, server administration, and so on. So you have a lot of things to learn, but don't worry, because you will specialize in this area as well. So you will just learn about selected technologies. You don't have to know everything. Let's see what front-end development is. So you mainly work with HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. If we take the analogy of building a house, HTML is like the brick and mortar, the structure. CSS is like the paint on the walls. And JavaScript is the cabling, the wires, that make everything alive and shiny and moving. This is something that one of my students came up with, by the way, as an analogy when he really couldn't grasp what HTML, CSS and JavaScript was. He just wanted to become a web developer, of course. And this was the analogy that helped him understand how to think about HTML and how to keep styling out of HTML especially. So HTML, CSS, JavaScript is just one thing. Besides that, there are other technologies worth learning, like TypeScript, like a framework like React or Angular. These are the most popular ones, or the aspiring ones like Svelte or Vue.js. So these are all possibilities. Or if you're looking for some smaller applications with low entry barrier than jQuery, if you're looking for some built-in way of developing websites and you don't want to use WordPress, for example, because you want something more customizable, than possibly Bootstrap. These are all options you can choose from. You don't have to learn everything. You just choose what you would like to work with. So that's client-side development. Everything you see in the browser. Now, you need some data to display. You also need some services that calculate something for you, or display a Google map, or a user, or a random image, or some other services. These are all server-side tasks, and server-side tasks are done in the backend. Backend is whatever is on the back and you cannot see. So there are different types of challenges and languages. So for example, there you rather use Python, or you can use like even JavaScript on the server because there is no JS. So knowing just JavaScript will take you very far, by the way. And there are other languages that like PHP, Go, Lang, and some other, but let's focus on just a few. And you will work with services like authentication, authorization, object relational mapping, so whatever server-side data you have in your models, and also the data structures are translated into structures that are used in relational databases. So this is another type of task, and there are many others that are server-side challenges, so that you validate your data and basically everything stays safe and secure and processed. All the application logic are there. So developing that has different challenges, but of course getting started and going through some courses and iterating on feedback is something that's an integral part of the game, of learning full stack web development. Then comes the database layer. So regardless of whether you use an SQL database or a NoSQL database, so you can have relational databases, object-oriented databases, and so on. So basically you can have some challenges like how to optimize data for retrieval, how to store data properly, and make sure that you keep the integrity of your data. So there are some challenges to learn there as well. A full stack web development bootcamp covers all that and more. And besides databases, server-side development, client-side development, obviously you have to store your code somewhere. This is where version control systems come into play. Nowadays we're using distributed version control systems such as Git, and oftentimes there is a web interface for that, for example GitHub or GitLab. And when we're talking about GitLab, for example, then there is it's worth mentioning that there is something called GitLab CI. CI stands for continuous integration. That's also a part of full stack development competencies, that you not only just deploy your application, develop your application, not only just develop your application, but you also build it for production use and deploy it to a live server. And maybe you also have some IT operation tasks such as configuring a server, so for example creating an Nginx configuration, or even maintain the server assets, orchestrating rollbacks and so on. So this might seem that you have a lot to learn, but in reality a full stack developer doesn't have to know everything. You just choose the technologies that you like. For example, back in the mid-2000s there was this LAMP stack, so L stands for Linux, then Apache, that's a server, PHP is the P, and M is MySQL. So that was like mid-2000s, and a lot of software developers were very much in demand when they knew this. Now there is there are two other acronyms, so for example MEAN or MERN. The M stands for Mongo, E Express, N stands for Node, so these are like database and server side, and the client side, if it's MEAN it's Angular, if it's MERN then it's React. So if you specialize in these, then you will find a lot of open positions that you can apply for as a full stack web developer. But you can choose obviously other disciplines as well, and you can also have a specialization within the full stack discipline. So you can focus on client side with React, for example, or you can focus on server side with either Express or Python Django, for example, or a lot of other options. So specialization is the key, because there are a lot of job opportunities and you can choose from them. So there are a lot to choose, and if you apply and your potential employer will see that you work with exactly the requested technologies that are in the job ad, then you have a lot higher chances of getting the job. Same holds for freelancers. If someone is looking for a Django freelancer, then obviously learning Django helps, especially if that's the specialization that you have and the portfolio item that you have on your web portfolio. Talking about web portfolio, so if you start learning full stack web development, it's very, very important to start building a portfolio. Regardless of whether you want to be employed or you want to freelance, you have to put something online that you developed. You have to have some sort of a track record, because if you don't have the experience, you have the track record of making continuous commits. So for example, if you commit every single day to GitHub, then people see your track record that you have been committing for 100 days, for example. That's one option. The other option is that you have like 2 or 3 very good portfolio projects. One of them is, let's say, a portfolio site, then a React application, then for example a Python Django application. And this should be something meaningful, so not just a to-do application that you can see everywhere, but add that twist to it that is yours, that is just yours. And then people will resonate with your style, with your with what you're about, with your development knowledge, and so on. So this is the way to go. And when it comes to choosing different courses, obviously a full stack web development bootcamp helps you a lot. This is just one thing. But if like when it comes to web development bootcamps or just simple courses, be careful that that you have to choose something that has some credentials, has some background. For example, if there is academic background, you can count on it on some level, because there is a track record that they're talking about something that they preach basically every day. If you work with experienced software developers, that's also something important. Now, if you work with marketers, internet marketers who pretend that they know how to develop software, that's another story. That's a bit more problematic, because many people might promise that you can become a full-fledged web developer, full stack developer even, in 72 hours or just a few days. And just think about it, like 72 hours. A lot of people learn for years in college. Obviously, some subjects are out of scope, but it's not 72 hours. My students take about like half a year until they are credible full stack developers. So it's not because they don't have the skills, don't have the knowledge, don't have the interest. They are very good, but the bar is very high because I'm very strict in grading the portfolio items especially. So it's important, because then if you go to a job, you're just not job ready in like 72 hours. Just a small fraction of you maybe, but for that you need to learn very fast, very intensively, and you might have had some background if you're job ready in let's say a week. So if you see a promise that you might not believe 100%, then my suggestion is run the opposite direction as fast as possible and just find something credible. What do you need in a training? So first of all, you need one thing, which is focusing on your portfolio items. Later, possibly get some clients if you want to freelance, and test out your knowledge by delivering something to them that clients value and can give you 5-star reviews in exchange, and also money. And one more thing is that choose a bootcamp where you can ask questions from a community or from a mentor, because a mentor can unblock you. For example, many of my students told me that they were just having a lot of trouble with one question, and they spent days on answering a question that they needed, just a puzzle piece to build their applications. And they brought their application to the consultation session, and I answered their question in like 5 minutes, because all I needed is just some context, because they were focusing on a problem so much. Imagine the problem is here, you're focusing here, but the solution is somewhere there, and all I needed to point out that you need to use this and see the big picture, and not just focus too much. It's very easy to just get lost in just focusing in one area instead of seeing the big picture and just solving the problem out of the box. And this is where mentors can unblock you and help you a lot. So if you know how to choose the right training, the right mentors or peers who will help you succeed, then I can just encourage you to jump into web development and try yourself out, because this career is very rewarding. You build something you like, and web developers are very much in demand also in 2020 and beyond.